Introducing YouTube memberships, a fun way to support the channel while getting some exclusive perks. Click the join button to become a member now and get benefits like badges next to your name on videos, behind-the-scenes photos, advantages during the live trivia game, discounts on merchandise, private one-on-one video chats, the ability to request future video topics, and exclusive 8 to 10 minute videos on the history of the NFL. And now, on with our feature presentation. Well, the Dude Perfect broadcast, the second one and the final one of the year. Last year, there were 4 of these broadcasts, but this year, they cut it back to just 2 over the course of a 6-day period. Make of that what you will. If you want to see my review of the last Dude Perfect broadcast on Black Friday, in the game between the Jets and the Dolphins, you can do that by clicking the card in the upper right corner. However, in short, the broadcast was about as bad as you would expect. It was somehow worse than the broadcast from last year. The football insight, if you want to call it that, was terrible. The games that they played were incredibly confusing and hard to follow, and the broadcast was the one thing that you would never expect Dude Perfect to be. Absolutely boring. So because I've done this for just about every single Dude Perfect broadcast, I wanted to see if things would improve or anything would be better. Which at this point, seems like me watching a Harlem Globetrotters game to root for the Generals and hope that they would win, because maybe the Generals are due. And folks, this broadcast might have legitimately been the worst of the bunch. I'm not even kidding. Dude Perfect keeps finding a way to lower the bar with each successive broadcast. You would think that things would improve on a broadcast-by-broadcast basis, but nope. The broadcasts that they did last year were awful, but they look like cinematic masterpieces compared to what they did this year. With the other Dude Perfect broadcasts over the past 2 years, the games themselves were nothing to write home about. Heck, the Jets-Dolphins game was one of the worst games of the entire season. But the fact that this game between the Cowboys and the Seahawks, which you can learn more about by clicking the card in the upper right corner, was a legitimately great game and featured the team that everyone on Dude Perfect was fans of, as they were all Cowboy fans, really made it evident that this format does not work at all. This format is a complete failure, and if the broadcast does come back for year 3, which Dude Perfect assured me that it will, which I cannot believe they actually responded to me, then major changes are going to need to be made. What do I mean by the fact that their Cowboys bias made this broadcast painful? I'm not talking about the fact that they were openly rooting for the Cowboys on stream. In fact, I actually quite like that. It gave it a sense of authenticity. They played into it and actually made quite a few jokes about rooting for the Cowboys when they're an alternate broadcast that was supposed to show no bias. It's like asking Tom Grossi to not root for the Packers on his stream. You don't expect that going in, nor would you want that. Seeing them get legitimately excited when players on the Cowboys did certain things, and seeing them easily identify players on the team that they knew, was good. The problem is that it made it very clear that they did not want to be there and do their format, because with the game that close with their favorite team playing in it, all they wanted to do, unsurprisingly, was watch the game. There were multiple times throughout the broadcast where they were scheduled to do something, and they didn't want to do it, because they wanted to watch a specific play or a game. Here are just some of the many examples throughout the stream.
Okay. I need to watch the play.
Of course.
Thank you.
Hang on. Yeah, we're going to watch out a gun here.
Second and 8.
Prescott, 2nd and 8.
All right, let's slow it down. Let's watch a little game. We need to the Cowboys need our big drive right now.
And therein lies one of the problems with this broadcast. They're playing into a format where even they themselves acknowledge that they don't necessarily want to do it. You've got a back and forth game where their favorite team is playing. They want to watch the game. And they're acknowledging that they'd rather watch the game than do whatever they're supposed to be doing on the alternate broadcast. It's like that Family Guy scene where Peter does the milkshake routine. He has to do it, but he's miserable. And I don't blame the Dude Perfect guys for being that way. If I had to do an alternate broadcast during a Jaguars game, and half the time I couldn't actually watch the Jaguars play, yeah, I'd be reluctant too. This broadcast feels like it's trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. And if it wasn't apparent based off of everything I just said, it's also apparent based off of the sponsorship reads themselves and the predetermined reads that they had to do. Like, what is this one for next gen stats?
Give me a chance.
For about 2.5. Garrett.
I'm ready. I'm ready.
Throw that, big boy.
That was next-gen stats powered by AWS.
And what's this one from Mercedes-Benz?
I'll tell you what we have. We have a really good football game so far.
And I'm going to let you finish, but that was the Mercedes-Benz spotlight.
And my personal favorite, Ty is trying to deliver a message thanking people, and two of the guys are trying to talk, but their mics are muted.
I just want to thank the audience for tuning in. We know you guys have choices when it comes to your broadcast, and we appreciate you being here with us tonight. This is going to be a lot of fun.
There has to be a better way to incorporate the mandated corporate parts than this. It's like, imagine if I'm talking about the incredible game that DK Metcalf had with 3 touchdowns at Home Depot, where doers get more done. Go to your local Home Depot and get your shopping done today. That's what this was like. It was incredibly unnatural, and felt as though they just had to say it at random parts, but they had no idea when they were going to say it. But the biggest problem, by far, and it's actually not even close, was with the minigames, because this was the worst slate of minigames yet. Every game was either super boring, was impossible to keep track of, or suffered production issues beyond belief. Heck, sometimes, or should I say most of the time, it featured all 3. Let's start with Fish Toss, which actually incorporated the game to some extent. In teams of 2, you had to guess whether the play would be a run or a pass. If the play was correct, you got to toss the fish. If the fish was caught, you get a point. Seems simple enough, right? Well, there were 2 problems with this. Number 1, the rules made no sense. Take this play, for instance. You would think that this would count as a pass, right? There was a dropback, there was a clear intent to throw the football, and this counts as a sack. However, this did not count as a pass. They counted this as a run, even though under no circumstances is this a run. Meanwhile, you got a point for correctly guessing that this would be a kick, even though that was quite literally the only thing that you could do. It's like if they did this in golf, and you had to guess what club would be used with the guy 5 feet from the hole and on the green. It's a putter. That's the only thing it can be. So that was stupid. But number 2, shocker, there's no way to tell who is winning, because they don't keep the score on. Who caught more fish? Who knows? There's no freaking score. We're just guessing and forcing 9-year-olds at home to keep track of 2 games at once without any visual aids. This will be a common problem throughout the broadcast, which, if you watch the Black Friday debacle, will not come as a shock to anyone. The second game was called TP Quarterback, and how it worked was that you would just throw toilet paper onto a plunger. First one to land it on the plunger wins. However, this game also suffered 2 problems. Number 1, the guys just started going out of order and breaking their own rules, so good job sticking to that and making it easy to follow. But number 2, the production issues were apparent, because there were multiple times where we could not tell whether the guy made or missed the throw, because they did not show it. Take these 2 moments, for example, where the director decides it's a good idea to show a close-up of the guy throwing it, without actually showing the plunger.
Let it go down the road. Oh, that was cute. That was cute. All right, Seahawks.
I'm going
Of the
Troy.
Cowboys?
Go to the Cowboys. I feel like
Did you know
Genius. It's like showing a field goal by showing the kicker, and that's it. No tracking of the ball or the goalposts. That would be a horrible way to watch a broadcast, right? Well, if you were invested in the TP Challenge, that's what this was like. The third game was called Egg Scramble, and this was one of the dumbest games they've ever played. Heck, this might be the worst game they've ever played. The guys just threw eggs up and tried to catch the most yolk. Whoever had the least amount of yolk was eliminated. However, good luck being able to tell who was winning, because to do that, you need a close-up of the actual bowls. But they did not have that, because why would they? It's like they're trying to play a game straight out of Double Dare, but they've never watched an episode of Double Dare in their lives, and have no idea that it works there, because you can always clearly see the bowl or the cylinder or whatever. But it doesn't work here because, quite simply, you can't. You just can't. Really, why did they use bowls for this? Why the heck would you use bowls? They take longer to fill, and it's tough to eyeball it, because in a competition like this, you want to be able to eyeball it. So you need something like a cylinder, where it's smaller at the bottom and it fills vertically faster. This was such a train wreck all the way around. Which takes us to game number 4 called Tush Push. The guys had to throw footballs from a slide and had to get it closest to a designated target without going over. However, while this competition could have seemed cool, it's actually impressive how badly they botched it. They had guys going at the same time, but in all their genius, both guys were throwing the same color vortex football. Can you believe how stupid that is? Imagine if in golf, you had 2 guys teeing off at the same time with the exact same golf ball, and how hard that would be to follow. Well, that's what happened here. You could have had one guy throw a pink ball and the other one throw a green ball, but nope. They used the same color vortex football, so you couldn't keep track of it. Predictably, this led to a scenario where neither guy knew who was closest to the target. Because how could you?
No, I threw long.
I thought I threw long.
No.
I thought
threw it long.
Kobe was long.
Kobe threw it long.
I think can we go to the booth?
Oh, and they only had room in the budget for 2 vortex footballs, so they had to use markers like shoes to mark their ball. They had money in the budget for a freaking sushi chef, but not for 2 extra vortex footballs. Make it make sense, I beg of you. 4 participants should mean 4 vortex footballs of 4 different colors. And yet, no one thought to do that here. Just brilliant. Then, we go to the worst halftime craft time of all time, where the guys painted birdhouses. The whole point of this segment, or so I thought, was to do some arts and crafts that kids at home could easily do, so that they could send in their submissions and so that you could get some engagement that way. Last week, it was to make a paper airplane. Last year, a lot of the crafts involved drawing something, whether it was an object or a person, or whether the challenge was doing it blindfolded. Here, who the heck has a freaking birdhouse just lying around their home? Here, kids, do something with this spare piece of paper and make a cool paper airplane. Here, kids, do something with the crayons you have in the junk drawer and draw something cool. Here, kids, paint a freaking birdhouse. You know how every home in America has a spare birdhouse just sitting there in their kitchen? This challenge forces kids to either not participate or to miss a good chunk of the broadcast to run to their nearest Michael's or Hobby Lobby and get a birdhouse. Not that I think any of those stores would be open on a weeknight at 10 p.m. on the East Coast. It's like if I'm an English teacher at a school and I tell my students to take out their history textbook. No one's gonna have that, especially since I didn't tell them before class to bring that. The Dude Perfect broadcast lacks all common sense, and that's the most frustrating part about this broadcast in particular. While there are things that could work, they're hindered by the fact that no one was thinking critically when they came up with this. The rest of the games were nothing to write home about. In past sequence, the guys had to hit targets based on the order in which they lit up. In this time-based competition, there was no timer, so it was impossible to tell who was winning or not. You just had to guess and hope for the best, or pull out the stopwatch app on your phone and manually track it yourself. Then, there was Bull Rush, where the guys had to throw footballs into a net while riding a mechanical bull in a designated time frame. Not only was there no timer to count down, but there was no scoreboard, so you had no idea how many balls were in each net. And the hook and splatter game, which involved 2 of the guys trying to dunk each other using pool noodles, took all of 20 seconds, so that was a dud. And that was the broadcast. That was the whole broadcast. It involved the guys not wanting to play the games because they wanted to watch the actual game, and the games that they ended up playing were so bad, so confusing, so poorly designed, and so poorly produced that it was just painful to watch. Truly, this broadcast might have been the worst of the bunch. So what's the solution to the broadcast for me? If this broadcast does come back for year 3, and again, despite what Dude Perfect said, I'm highly skeptical that Amazon is going to bring this back, what would my fixes be? Number 1, get a larger monitor so that no matter where the guys are in the studio, they can watch the game. Mount a TV to each of the walls that is showing the game. Do something besides a tiny monitor where they have no idea what's happening in the game if they're not directly in front of the TV by the desk. Number 2, have someone in the production truck who can keep a real-time score of the games that they play. Easy fix. Play games that are tested, that you can track in real time, and that actually lend themselves to having scores. Number 3, change all of the mini-games to be games that incorporate the actual game themselves. Make all of the mini-games games within a game. Something like the Dunk Tank Challenge from last year is what I'm talking about. Here's an idea for a game. Throughout the second quarter, have the inflatable slide. Each of the guys has to guess how many yards the play will get, over or under a certain amount. If the bet hits, they go down the slide and throw at different targets, each with different point values. If it doesn't hit, then they don't go down the slide. Highest score at the end of the challenge wins. There's no reason you can't do something like that. If every minigame allowed for the kids to pay attention to the game itself, and then turn their attention to Dude Perfect in the 30 seconds where nothing is happening on the field, that would be amazing. That's what the broadcast should have been from the start. A regular NFL broadcast with a Dude Perfect twist. Almost like how Nickelodeon focuses on the game, and then focuses on their brand when the play is done. No one wants a broadcast where you just see Dude Perfect watching a game, since they offer no real insight, and that would be boring. But a broadcast that combines the best of both worlds? Honestly, that could work pretty well. It would do a heck of a lot better than whatever they're doing right now, I'll tell you that much. We'll see if Dude Perfect does that at all if they do come back for year 3. But I doubt it, if the continuing decline of the broadcast is anything to go off of. Because between the poor games, the poor production, the poor ideas, the poor execution, and everything else, the final Dude Perfect broadcast of 2023 was anything but perfect. Get your official Jaguar Gear 9 merchandise by going to jj9shop.com, and be sure to like and subscribe, as it really helps the channel out a lot. Join me every Wednesday night where we'll play NFL Trivia for cash prizes at 9 p.m. Eastern over on Twitch. To learn more about the history of college football, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 8. To learn more about the history of Major League Baseball, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 7. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping out the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. See how you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.